Joining us now with more, Florida Senator Marco Rubio. He has now introduced legislation to hold our government accountable for its role in this disaster. Senator, I have what the people at the EcoHealth Alliance put out. They say they didn't support gain-of-function research. Okay, I'm not a scientist, but I will say this. Why, in fact, did the NIH get a penny, a single cent for a Wuhan virology lab in China, our #1 geopolitical foe? Number two, it sounds like they're playing with fire when you read the actual document and the drop by Judicial Watch. And three, I believe that we were lied to from the very beginning, that Anthony Fauci, the people that were telling us that this was a wet market issue and not a virology lab issue, were lying to us. What do you say?
Well, we're actually going to have more information. We're putting the finishing touches on it. It builds on the report that was released yesterday with actually even more evidence of the fact that something was going on in China. And we're going to be able to put this out there. We just got to get it cleared. That put it out that something was going on in China well before it was even acknowledged that there was anything going on. And I think it adds credence to this whole lab leak theory. And it's not just the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Remember, there's a second place there called the Wuhan Institute of Health, which is also involved in this. This is a place that's had repeated accidents in the past. And so I think there's every reason to suspect that these two labs working on this kind of stuff also happen to be in the city where it began and have had accidents in the past. I think the likelihood that I agree with the FBI on this one. I agree with the Department of Energy on this one. The likeliest outcome here is that this was a lab accident covered up by the Chinese that, of course, have destroyed the world. And I want to make one other point, because I think you talk about the experts in general. You were talking earlier with John Solomon about these intel experts. These are former intelligence officials, because we have these industries now of former officials, particularly in intelligence, but also in health, who after they leave government service go out there and offer up these opinions and rally together for political causes. Sometimes they're paid to do it. Sometimes they're doing it to help a candidate. And they are undermining confidence in all of our government institutions. We saw that in healthcare with COVID. We've seen it with intelligence with some of the political activities that happened in 2020.
Senator, let me read to you, because we're talking about American tax dollars here. In their initial application for federal assistance, the Eco Alliance put out there that they wanted to propose to examine the transmission dynamics of bat coronaviruses across the human-wildlife interface and how this process is affected by COVID's or coronavirus's evolutionary potential and how it might force its evolution. And, quote, we will assess the nature and the frequency of contact among animals and people in two critical human-animal interfaces. Now, it sounds to me like they're playing with fire here. And again, we're talking about American tax dollars, millions of them, going with Anthony Fauci's approval. He's running the NIH through this Eco Alliance group. They say they're not involved in gain of function. But that sounds to me like they are playing a very, very dangerous game. And we now know the result of that game, don't we?
Yeah, so they can call it whatever they want. They can deny its gain of function. Here's what that means in English, which you just read. It means this. It means these are people that are saying, we wonder what would happen if this virus mutates into something that's infectious in humans. And they would argue we need that, because if we can predict how it's going to mutate, we can actually create a vaccine ahead of time. So to do that, you have to mess with the virus. Well, what happens if someone who's messing with it messes up and gets infected by it? And they go home and they give it to a bunch of people and it spreads like wildfire.
Well, wait a minute.
That sounds a lot like what happened in Wuhan.
But, Senator, didn't Anthony Fauci say at the time, and didn't others government officials say at the time, that it most likely came from a wet market where they sold bats and other exotic animals?
Yeah, but here's the thing. In SARS and MERS and all these other outbreaks, they've been able to produce the animal. Within 3, 4, 5 months, they've been able to say, here's the animal, here's the infection, we tracked it down to date. To this moment, they have yet to come forward and say, here's an animal infected with this exact virus. They've not done that. This is the first time in all these other zoonotic infections. This is the one where they can't do it. And so you add that up with all these other things, and you start to conclude here that, in fact, this probably was a lab leak accident. Someone got infected. It now has spread across the world. And a totalitarian communist government in China doesn't want the world to know about it.
And the American taxpayer foot at least part of the bill. That is unconscionable.
And some of our scientific community have actually gone along with not getting out there because, frankly, they agree with this sort of research. They think it's a risk that we have to take.
Hey, 2012, Anthony Fauci said that he supported gain-of-function research, even if it resulted in a worldwide pandemic. That tells you, and this was 2013, the first initial application by EcoHealth Alliance.
He was
According to
ahead
this
of his
paper.
time then. He was ahead of his time. He predicted the future right there by doing that.
All right, Senator Rubio, please do us all a favor, the country a favor. Please get to the bottom of this. We appreciate you.
We'll have more next week.
All right, straight ahead, Joe Biden.